I say. Fucking down, you mad bastard!
This morning, though, we are talking in this hour of the show about cycling and cyclists. And I know that when we talk about this, that we get a lot of response. So if you'd like to talk about it this morning, we'd like to hear what you've got to say, whether you are a cyclist, whether you're a motorist, whether you're both, your thoughts. And a question we're asking really is about why we're so angry on our roads. The BBC presenter Jeremy Vine has posted a video online which shows a woman launching a verbal assault on him as he cycled down a London street. He was riding home from presenting his Radio 2 show last Friday when the driver appeared to tailgate him before getting out of a car to argue. And this is the sound of the audio of what happened.
It's because I've got to be a car with... Why would you stop in front of the car? You don't respect the life. Move your bike, move your bike. Move your bike. No, you stick to it. I could hit you and everything. I would be done for murder.
Yeah, basically, Jeremy Vine said that if you didn't make it out, it's because I've got to be a car's length apart. And then the woman said, why would you stop in front of my ing car? Why don't you respect your ing life? Move your bike, move your bike, move your bike now. I could have hit you and I'd have been done for murder. You can hear the woman kicking his bike at the end with such anger. Where does it come from? Why does sharing the road with other users provoke such fury? What is the problem? Is there fault on both sides? Poor awareness of the rules of the road. Since the Olympics, there's been an increase in cyclists using the roads. Could that force us to get along better? Matt Cork is Services Manager from the British Cycling Partnerships.
It's a slower process, that one. We know that some people are concerned about riding on the roads, and we know that there are some issues in the inner cities with cyclists and motorists. But we'd also know that cycling is a much safer activity than people think, and actually the health benefits far outweigh the risks. What we're also seeing, I think now, cycling is becoming normalised. We're seeing more cyclists on the street. They're not necessarily in complete cycling garb. It's becoming a thing that's just a normal thing. There's a noticeable difference in the way that motorists treat cycling. We've got a campaign in Arm Choose Cycling that reinforces that through government. Other agencies do the same. So there is a shift in the way that people view cyclists, and that can only be a positive thing in the way that we all share that road space.
Because whenever we talk about this here on the radio, there will be cyclists who get angry, there'll be motorists who get angry. And I don't really want to dwell on this, but it is a barrier. Do you think that's true to some people deciding to actually buy a bike or use their bike more?
Well, it is a barrier, and you would have that. And of course, we need to remember many motorists ride bikes, many cyclists, if not most, ride cars. So I think we can always look at the bad examples and the bad instances, but there are a huge amount of people that are now cycling every week and every month. And there are a huge amount of people still on the road in cars. And generally, it's a harmonious relationship. There are barriers, and what we're trying to do is to normalise cycling where it becomes just an everyday part of life, as in Copenhagen, as in the Netherlands. There's a funding requirement to that to support cycling as a component of our society, but those barriers will come down. The more that cycling becomes a normal activity, it will become accepted. There's a shift at the moment, isn't there? More people are riding bikes, and there's bound to be some issues around that. But as time goes on, we expect to see those barriers come down and even more people get on bikes.
And when you say a funding component, what would that money be spent on?
Our work in the Choose Cycling Network and talking to government about cycling, there's a cost per capita that we move towards, but we know that you need to cover all bases, really, Jonathan. So you need to, infrastructure is a key element of that. Training is a key element of that. Opportunities for people to ride bikes and platforms to ride bikes. Funding the sport in schools, getting kids riding bikes. We know it's across the piece. So there's no single element. There's no panacea of lots of infrastructure isn't the answer. It's a collective thing across the centrepiece to just make cycling fit into society.
But when we talk about infrastructure, are you suggesting that we do need more cycle lanes, dedicated cycle lanes, not just somewhere at the edge of the road?
British Cycling is quite clear on our position in terms of infrastructure, where we want to see better cycling infrastructure. That will mean different things in different areas of the city. So in Cambridge, it would mean something different. In Newcastle, it would mean something different to London, and would mean different things in provincial towns. I wouldn't want to comment on the specifics of Newcastle, but certainly where there are issues in terms of sharing the road and where there's capacity for it, cycling-specific lanes are a great way to get people riding bikes, to break that barrier of fear of riding on the roads, to increase safety. And we've seen that in Copenhagen, we've seen it in cities across Europe, and we've seen it in London with the cycling superhighways.
And when you talk about training as well, is that training in schools or is that training for all of us?
Well, we have a programme called Go Ride, where we go into schools, we provide opportunities for kids to ride bikes and a platform towards the sport. And that is key because we are a sporting body and cycling as a sport is fun. And we want to reinforce that to kids, get them into the habit. And in terms of the wider community, we've got programmes where we run guided rides, Go Sky Ride. There are rides in Newcastle still available at the moment, where we offer a safe environment with our ride leaders, where we get people riding at various levels, 5-mile rides, 10-mile rides and beyond, in a safe environment, and creating the environment for them where they're supported, they're not threatened, they're not intimidated. And it's those two, it's that platform really that then leads people through not riding into riding and sustaining that habit.
That's Matt Cork, Services Manager for the British Cycling Partnership. So what do you think? Why are we so angry on the roads? Whether you're a cyclist who's been incensed by a motorist or a motorist who generally feels a little cranky on the commute, do let us know. 0191 232 6565 and tell us your experiences. We will, after 11:30, be speaking to a man from a cycling group who, you may have seen this footage. It went viral at the time. It happened in Northumberland. And what he tells me, this is an interview we recorded earlier, is that there are incidents virtually every time now he goes out on the roads when it comes to motorists. So if you're behind the four wheels or on two wheels, 0191 232 6565. Our text is 81333. Start your message with BBC. You can tweet us at BBC Newcastle. Just want to read out this email which we had in. And I said earlier on, in response to a message or a tweet that I'd had in from Wayne, and I said, because the entire world, I asked the question, why are we so angry on the roads? And Wayne said, because the entire world needs to get places yesterday. I'm as guilty as anyone. And I said too, I've been angry behind the wheel. David says, Jonathan said he gets angry behind the wheel, but have you got out of your car repeatedly, used foul language over and over again and assaulted a cyclist, as this woman did, according to the video? Every human being can get angry, but there's a difference between that and what happened to Jeremy Vine. Saying you get angry doesn't remotely excuse the woman's appalling behaviour. I wasn't saying it was actually, David. I was simply making the point that I am angry. There's been anger and being angry at somebody else's thoughtlessness on the road, and of course doing what was done in that video. However, the floor is yours. 0191 232 6565. Text 81333. Start your message with BBC. Will drivers and cyclists ever just get along? A video clip of a motorist verbally abusing a BBC presenter, Jeremy Vine, has reignited that whole debate.
It's because I've got to be acknowledged. Why would you stop in front of the car? You don't respect the life. Move your bike, move your bike. Move your bike. No, you stick to it.
Yeah, if you couldn't make all that, I mean, obviously you can imagine that it was a very, very angry confrontation. Imagine waking up to that video of yourself all over the net, shouting at Jeremy. Anyway, this happened in London, but cyclists across the country film their commutes these days in case they encounter these kind of problems. So how common are they on roads in the northeast? One man who watches with interest is John Doherty, who runs a Facebook group specifically concerned with traffic problems in one part of the northeast. John, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Many thanks for joining us today. Does what you've just heard in that video that we've been talking about, does it surprise you?
No, because the Facebook page that I run, Gossip Traffic, we have this debate. It's calmed down a lot in the last 12 months. But at one point, we had cyclists and motorists at each other's throat on a daily basis on a Facebook page.
And from memory, what is the thing that irritates the motorists the most, and what irritates the cyclists the most?
Motorists accuse cyclists of running red lights by jumping on the pavement when there's a red light. crossing over and getting back on the road. They accuse them of wanting infrastructure that's provided at an inconvenience to drivers. And they accuse them of riding on the roads with no insurance, no tax, and they don't like them riding two abreast.
Yes, now that is a common complaint, isn't it? Because motorists say, well, if you actually rode in single file, then it would make it easier for us to get past. I'm sure you've heard that argument quite often.
It is actually legal, though, for them to ride two abreast.
It is legal.
If they want to do it. Yes, it is.
They can do it. But still, I mean, I'm sure, again, you must have heard from many motorists who are very angry about the whole thing, saying they're getting in our way, they're slowing us down.
They do. There's every week there is a new post goes on. The cyclist versus motorist debate has calmed down a lot in the last 12 months, mainly because I stopped it happening. But every week there'll be a new post goes on. We'll say I was cut up by a cyclist, or a motorist saying I was and vice versa. It does happen, and it will go on. It will go on forever.
Yeah. What is it going to take to get us all commuting in harmony, do you think?
Well, it needs a sort of like community spirit, and what we've tried to do on Gosford Traffic is to rally everybody around and bring everybody together. So we'll get cyclists and motorists debating about the infrastructure that's happening currently in Gosford, where they've created new cycle lanes on Great North Road. But then the council go and put new not cycle lanes, but on Bellevue Terrace and Rectory Grove in Gosford, they've put no entry signs on one side of the street, which means you can't drive up it, but you can come in from the other side. And on the front of those signs it says accept cyclists. Now they aren't specific cycle routes there to stop motorists rat running from Moor Road, but then the layperson in the street sees that, and the motorists see that and they say, they've got more. There's another lane for them. There's another road for them. It's all for cyclists, and that's what winds them all up. It winds the motorists up, and you can see it every day on the page.
Yeah, okay, and in terms of the anger, I wonder if you've got any thoughts about that, because that's the question we're asking this morning. Why are we so angry and appearing to be so intolerant of one another?
It's just the way society is these days. I mean, people don't know who the next door neighbour is, but they knew that back in the 1970s. It's a way that society has moved on, and the only way to stop the intolerance is to get people around the table and get them talking and get them interacting with each other and understanding each other's point of view.
And does that happen on your Facebook page eventually, after the initial anger?
It has eventually happened, right. Yes, because I stopped all of the nastiness, and the motorists were on there shouting at cyclists and vice versa. But we've managed to calm that down. We've managed to get them talking, and we managed to put posts on there. We've got one about the new bus gate that's been built on Old Wilton Terrace, and there's now a safe route from Gosford into the city centre through Old Wilton Terrace, through Moor Road, across Little Moor and into Brandling Park. And that's a positive thing, and the motorists see that, and they think, right, well, you've got a nice little route, and it's nice and safe for you. But then the flip of that is that they then complain about cyclists being on Great North Road and Gosford High Street, because there's a safe route, if you understand.
Yeah.
So although we have alleviated quite a few of the problems and got people talking together, there's still things that crop up on an almost daily basis.
Sounds like a full-time job, John. Many thanks for being with us this morning.
That's okay.
Thank you. John Docherty, who runs the Facebook group at Gosforth Traffic. You heard what he had to say there. Some of your thoughts. Andy says, I drive around the local roads a lot. Every day I see an incident involving every kind of road user: motorists, cyclists, motorbikes, pedestrians. It's the ones who have the accidents who are usually to blame, in my opinion. The amount of drivers speeding past me on roads way above the speed limits, motorists weaving in and out of traffic, cyclists doing the same, not stopping at red lights. There are all these new cycle lanes everywhere, and they don't use them. That's exactly what we've just been hearing from John there. Speed and a total lack of concentration are a major factor. People, says Andy, need to concentrate on the driving and the cycling. I'm basically blaming these people who break the rules. And personally, I've got no sympathy. And I think, what have we started here? I knew the phones would be busy and the texts would be busy. Sarah says, he says, no such thing as road tax, it's car tax. Most cyclists and horse riders are also drivers too, so do pay car tax. Yes, Sarah, good point. Thank you very much. Keep them coming in. We'll carry on talking about this over the next, 20 minutes or so. You're talking about cycling and motorists and the anger that there is, and asking the question to you this morning, why are we so angry? Les Thompson is a keen cyclist from North Tyneside, and like Jeremy Vine, he uses a helmet cam to record his rides. I've seen quite a few of these, and actually the cyclists who I was with on Sunday on the Great North Bike Ride from Sea Houses down to Tynemouth, a lot of them had the cameras. Some of them were in the helmets, some are on the front of the bikes, but they are there just in case there are incidents. Anyway, Les has got one of these. He had his own episode of road rage near Seaton Delaval early this year when a motorist clipped him with their wing mirror. A bit of swearing there, this time from the cyclists involved. I spoke to Les earlier this morning and I asked him to explain to us what was happening in that clip.
I heard my colleagues behind shouting, "Whoa!" and a car came by me and the wing mirror just whispered across my elbow. It was so ridiculously close that we shouted a few choice words at the car, and I had a camera on my bike. I used to take it just to take photographs of the group and of nice sunsets and anything interesting on the rides. But more recently, because of cars pulling out in front and chopping us up, I put it on the handlebars occasionally and just let it record the ride.
And
so,
how often then is this happening?
I would say almost every other ride there is an incident where somebody either pulls out and almost takes you out from a junction, or they wind the window down and shout things. You know, I'm a mature cyclist. I was cycling as a teenager, and I'm in my 60s now. We ride responsibly. We do ride side by side, as this is, unless it's a single track road. Side by side is safer because it forces motorists to overtake more sensibly. That if you're single file, they think they can squeeze through.
It does irritate motorists, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Side by side. Do you accept that?
Yes, yeah, I do. The same as when I'm driving and there's a horse and cart. But you can't sort of go whizzing past, beeping your horn and shouting and causing problems. There may be some hitchhikers, there may be walkers on the side of a country road. A couple of weeks ago, cycling through Stampson, there was horses, and they were riding side by side.
That's an interesting point, Les, because I don't think motorists, and I'm not a cyclist, but I don't think motorists grasp that concept of the fact that when you are side by side, it's actually safer. Motorists just see you as a pain, so they can't get past. You're slowing them down.
That's right. And the reason is, if we're in single file, they just think, oh, there's a car coming, but I can squeeze through. And they don't realise that there may be a pothole, some gravel, a puddle. And if there's a puddle, you don't know if there's a broken bottle in it, a brick, or if it's 3 foot deep. So you have to veer around it. And often, on a windy day, the wind can shift you, 3 feet across the road if it catches you between a gap in a hedge. And if they overtake really close, the wind off the car blows you into the side.
The question I'm asking this morning, Les, is the anger. Because you've seen that video which involving Jeremy Vine in London. There was real anger there. There was a very, very angry person. And I wonder how we've got to this point on the roads. As someone who's been on the receiving end of it, what are your thoughts?
Well, as a motorist and a keen cyclist, the motorists, when you're sat in your car, it's like your defence zone. You think you're in a Challenger tank and it's your domain, and anybody that sort of invades that or interferes with it seems to get the anger. As a cyclist, we're very vulnerable. Blinking well hurts, even if you get knocked off at 10 mile an hour. There's broken collarbones and severe bruising. When we're riding past parked cars, we have to allow at least a car door width, because the number of times cyclists are knocked off by motorists just opening the door without looking. And if you're not riding 3 or 4 feet away from the car, you smack into the door with a broken jaw and broken bike.
How do we solve this then? How do we take the anger out of this debate and this discussion, which we've had on this programme many, many times?
It's an education. Motorists shout at me. I ride an off-road bike and a road bike. And a road bike, you're riding at 20, 25 miles an hour often along the seafront. There is a dedicated cycle track that is bumpy as can be, going from Seaton Sluice all the way by the Briardine pub. But there's bus stops, people getting off buses walking across it. There's glass, there's gravel, it's bumpy, there's weeds bursting through the tarmac on them. And if you're riding at 20, 25 miles an hour, you're passing people's drives, there's junctions. If you're on the main road, you don't have to stop. And as a cyclist, it's a pain in the bum if you have to stop every 100 yards and get started again to let somebody walk across the road from a bus stop. So often the cycle tracks, they think everybody should ride on them, often they're unsuitable.
So education and investment in cycle tracks, and then we might get somewhere, and then we might take the heat out of this.
Possibly, but cycle tracks are fine for children and people who are riding at 10, 12 miles an hour and tootling along, because often they are going across people's driveways, across car parks, and you have to stop and look at every single one. If you're a serious cyclist who's, like last Sunday, we rode from Mannan, from Newby back to North Shields, so we did 95 miles in the day. If we rode on cycle tracks, it would have taken all day. We would have had a puncture every 5 miles, because they're rough, they're gravelly. Greenhead Bank, there's a cycle track at the side. One of us tried to ride up that, but it's covered in slime and wet and mud, so the bikes just slip and slither. And motorists were shouting at us for riding up the hill in single file, gasping for breath, thinking we should use the track, and it's actually unrideable.
That is Les, who I spoke to earlier on, Les Thompson, keen cyclist from North Tyneside, and he was involved in a road rage incident near Seaton Delaval. He says education is key. There are. I thought I'd just share these. Claire, my producer, has put these together, and these are basically the things that it is legal for cyclists to do. It is legal for them to ride to abreast, ride in the middle of the lane, if you can keep up with the traffic, and then it's often safest to do this and then take the lane as you'll find it easiest to see and be seen. And it's also legal to ride outside the cycle lane. Some of your thoughts. Alistair in Gosforth says, well done, John Doherty. Discussion and understanding, exactly what's needed. This is John, who we spoke to earlier on, who runs a Facebook page about traffic in Gosforth. Alistair says, people are angry on the roads because often road designs put people in conflict. Building safe cycle routes that takes people on bikes where they want to go would take them out of the way of the cars. The conflicts would be removed. One in here, no name on this. Please, if you're texting him, do give us a name. Bad enough on a bike. Try being on a horse. You can predict what your bike is going to do. Look at videos online. Even a horse pulling a hearse was killed. It's terrible. I'm a horse rider. Here's another one. And every day I take my horse out on the roads and get incensed by both cyclists and drivers. Very little or no respect shown. Every kind of road user should think and respect other users, no matter of the form of transport. And stop speeding. Take the foot off the accelerator, says mystery texter. Morning, Jonathan. This is from Andy in Hebburn. Regarding cycling, riding on pavements, not making themselves seen in the dark, riding without lights, they are a menace. Not all, but the ones who on a daily basis are making a public nuisance of themselves, and they just don't care about other members of the public. Thank you very much indeed. Many, many people getting in touch about that this morning, and thank you. You can on 81333, start your message with BBC. On Twitter, it's at BBC Newcastle. Our phone is 0191232 6565.